Hi, folks. A very warm welcome to season 5, episode 14 of the Lemons and Pineapples podcast with me, Emma O'Brien. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about a subject that's very close to my heart, and that is 5 signs you are a generational cycle breaker. Big boots to fill if you're one of those. And this is a person who has become very conscious of what their family system has normalized, which when you look at it through the cold light of day, is actually quite dysfunctional. There's a statistic I read, and I'm just going to take a guess at it because I can't quite remember, but it was essentially that only about 15% of people walking on the planet have a healthy, normal family dynamic. The rest of us are all muddling through as a result of some kind of dysfunction in our upbringing. So it's no wonder it can be so hard to navigate the world sometimes and navigate relationships. Now, when you are somebody who wakes up one day and goes, what the hell is happening here? This isn't normal, because maybe you've had the privilege and pleasure of popping into a family of one of those 15%, and then you come back to yours and you realize that there's all sorts of behavior going on that is really dysfunctional and unhealthy. Things like often families have family secrets and behaviors that maintain the family secret, things that we just don't talk about that. It might be that you have a lot of women in your family, and there'll be lots of things on in female-male relationships, in parent relationships. Maybe you have a lot of women in your family who are codependent or who overfunction or who silence themselves. And you are a woman, probably if you're listening to my podcast, you're probably a woman, and you've looked at it and gone, no, I'm not doing that anymore. This is not cool, and this is not what I want for myself. Whilst it can, I think being a cycle breaker, a generational cycle breaker, is a big responsibility, and it can sound really profound, but in reality, it's really, really hard. Most of the clients that I coach are generational cycle breakers. I had a conversation with one just this morning who said, I am so glad I have been doing this work with you, Emma, but it has been hard. It has made me face myself. I have had to look at things that it would have been easier to avoid. It has not been easy, but as a result of the work, I am much happier and I feel better. But it's hard work. It's really challenging work. We're challenging the status quo. You're often challenging systemic behaviors and patterns that have been coming down ancestral lines for a long time. You are maybe breaking out of the mold of not doing relationships like your parents do. And fundamentally, the challenge we have with changing things within a family system is that we will choose to toe the line and fit in and play a role and adapt ourselves to belong at all costs a lot of the time. Because belonging is a fundamental human need, and one of our biggest fears is being ejected from the tribe, being rejected. So often, before we bring these things into our conscious awareness, you might start, as I'm talking, you might be thinking, there's some sort of, I adjust my behavior when I go home, or I adjust my behavior with a parent, or I see my siblings adjust their behavior. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. But we all do these things in order to maintain the status quo and to belong. And the thing to remember before I dive more into this with family systems is that what is familiar will become what's normal for everybody, will become what feels safe, and will be the comfort zone everyone sits in, because that is what everybody knows. Even if it is grotesquely dysfunctional, often the system will be maintained by everybody playing their individual role to keep the whole thing operating, because it gives everybody a sense of safety, because that's what's always been done. And the challenge comes when you are a cycle breaker, that when you start to adjust your behavior, the system will react to that. So you might find suddenly a parent who doted on you becomes very angry with you. A sibling doesn't want to talk to you. And there's some ruckus within the system because something has been adjusted with you adjusting your behavior and everybody else doesn't like it. I recorded an episode, and I'll tag it in the notes here, talking about Harriet Lerner's book, The Dance of Anger, which is a book I recommend to my female coaching clients often because relational stuff often comes up. I'm not fundamentally a relationship coach. That's not what I'd call myself. But every single client that comes to me has some sort of relationship issue that's causing a big problem that we end up looking at. So, as an aside, before I dive in, I am running a free talk on Monday, the 31st of August. I'll pop a link in the show notes to that, where I'm going to be talking more about why you lose yourself in relationships and the impact of your family system on the way you show up and behave in relationships. So if you're listening to this and you're going, yeah, I also have a bit of a challenge at home with a husband or a partner, or I have a challenge with one of my parents that I can't seem to be able to shake or get my head around. My free talk is going to give you some more insight into what's happening with that. So you can just register for that via the link below in the show notes. So here are 5 signs you're a generational cycle breaker, you brave person, you. So number 1 is you question what your family considers normal. And this often happens. You might have some sort of epiphany. You might have been in therapy and then you're starting to see things more objectively. It's something that I have come to as a result of my family constellations work, my training, and also my own constellating that I have done. And constellating I've done for other people is I've started to really look at my own family system through a very systemic lens and starting to have a look at, I can see where some of the traits I have that are less than desirable, I see where they've come from. I see where I've learned them from. I see where they've probably been passed down. Because, like you, I am a generational cycle breaker. That is what I'm here doing. So you might have noticed things in your family like codependent behavior. That is, and codependency is, if you're okay, I'm okay. So you'll often have somebody who puts their own needs completely last, as long as everybody else is all right. So they seek their own validation and their own sense of self-worth from other people. It's often as a result of addictive behavior as well. So there is another great book called Healing Your Inner Child by Charles, I want to say Whitfield. And he talks about adult children of alcoholics and the pattern of codependency that can be set up with alcoholism. Also, same with workaholism. If you had a parent who was a workaholic and they were absent, there will be possibly side bits of codependency happening. Keeping family secrets. This is a big thing. We don't talk about that or just anything. There'll be perhaps some conversational topics that are completely off limits. We can't go there. We're not going there. And there might be some sort of punishment if you were to push the point with that, with like being punished with silence or being punished with somebody's anger. Very, very interesting when you start to spot these. Things like not challenging one person in the system's bad behavior. So maybe you've got a sibling or a parent who can get very angry very quickly and nobody challenges it. But what happens is everybody avoids whatever they think will trigger them to become angry. Or if they become angry, everybody gets back on, silences themselves, treads on eggshells, and everybody backs down in order to be able to soothe the situation. And then the person who has the anger problem knows if I just raise my voice, this is the end of what's happening here. So it's all these dynamics at play that are actually really awful when you start to look at them. But often they're things we've grown up with and they've become our normal. And then we go and recreate them in our own personal lives and then get fed up. And then we start to do this work. Not speaking up when you're unhappy. So not speaking your truth, not voicing a need, not saying I'm not okay with that, and just going along with things because that's what we do. We don't challenge that. We this is what we do. And these things, they seem normal, but it's actually on the face of it, it's very, very destructive behavior to be surrounded by. And it's often, it's family systems will have particular flavors to things that they do and don't do. So if you start to notice these, you can't unsee it once you start to see it. Number 2, you feel like an outsider in your own family because perhaps you've chosen a different path. So For example, maybe all of the women in the family before you have been doctors and you've decided to be an artist. And the system is like, oh, oh, this is not what we do. What the hell? And you end up feeling like a black sheep because you haven't followed the academic path and you've not hit the same milestones and you've not hit the same conventional academic achievements, but you've carved your own path. Often I'll have people who'll tell me that they're like the black sheep of the family. They've been excluded because of the way they've behaved. They've been excluded because they haven't continued to participate in the dysfunctional dynamic of the family. So if that's you, you're in good company here. So it is a very hard thing to navigate, though, doing this. Very, very hard. And I said in the introduction to the podcast, we like to belong. And when we don't feel like we belong, it's very, very difficult to kind of navigate that. And so I think a lot of people end up putting that non-belonging in a box somewhere until it pops out and says, hey, I'm ready for you to deal with me now. Number three, you feel guilty when you choose differently. So maybe you earn more than your parents. Maybe you are happier than your parents or than everybody else. Maybe you prioritize your own needs and you feel guilty about that because you've watched as your mother has put everybody before her and has almost been a bit of a martyr about it. And you feel guilty just for living life on your own terms, for not working yourself into a stupor, for not, not throwing everything into your career. When we make different choices, we often feel quite guilty about it. So it's difficult to enjoy our different choices we've made because we self-punish for that. Number four, you're committed to doing relationships differently than everybody else has done them before in your family. So maybe you recognize your own people-pleasing behavior and you've started to do work on that and you've stopped. Maybe you refuse to stay for appearances in relationship like the women before you perhaps have done. We don't get divorced because what will people say? And you're choosing to get divorced and you're sitting with that the disgruntledness of the family system because you've done something differently. Maybe you have noticed that your parents have a codependent relationship. That's not what you want. And yours is different. And maybe there've been comments about that from the parents as well. Often this is where we end up feeling really bad because we are shamed for our different choices by our family system. And number five, you feel responsible for healing the whole family. And you feel responsible for making sure the patterns that you have seen stop with you so they don't get passed on to your own children. So a phrase I often hear clients say is, this stops with me. I need this to stop with me. I don't want this to continue, but I'm not really quite sure how to break out of it. I just know that I need to. And this is where the work becomes extremely courageous and extremely brave to navigate through this, because this is where the work is hard. This is for me where the big value comes with constellation work and systemic coaching work, because often we can know we know we have these patterns, we know we can see them, we intellectually understand them, we understand this is what happened to my dad when he was growing up, so I understand why he was emotionally unavailable, but you still can't quite shift it. And this is where the deeper energetics of constellations really comes into play. So if you're curious about that, just a reminder to register for my talk next week. And I also have one-on-one family constellations available online. So you can book one of those, or you can book a discovery call to talk to me about it if you're curious. That's in the show notes as well. So last thing I want to share in this episode is, how do we start to navigate this stepping into the role of being a generational cycle breaker? So the first thing is to stop trying to get family buy-in with what you're doing. This can often be quite a lonely path. Stop expecting everybody else to also step up. And there's a big piece about accepting what is And sometimes we have to accept that everybody else in the system is oblivious to what's happening or is choosing to be oblivious and doesn't want to do any work on themselves. That is hard. That is when it becomes quite a lonely path. But that's often the reality is do your own work. Stop trying to worry about whether everybody else is going to join you because they may or may not. You can't make them. Let boundaries replace long explanations. So this might mean saying no to things. This might mean cutting short time with family. This might mean behaving quite differently and just persevering and pushing through with doing that. And know that what might happen initially is there'll be some pushback from everybody else. You might have people who are a bit cross with you or question what you're doing. Why are you doing that? You know, you've never done that before. But know that the responsibility for that response sits with them. And sometimes we have to let other people be uncomfortable and we have to sit in our own discomfort with other people being uncomfortable, especially if you are a people pleaser by nature. This is very, very difficult and you have to just ride it out. Build belonging outside of your family system. So this is where it becomes really important to find your tribe of like-minded people, whether that's friends doing similar work to you, whether that's a set of people that you know really well. Generally, your tribe will be the people you can spend time with who you don't have to mask your true self, who you can be who you are without censoring. Those are the people we're looking for when we're building belonging outside of our family system. And those are the people you want to be cherishing and really, really nourishing. Allow yourself to grieve what you didn't get as a child and what you didn't get and perhaps still don't or won't get from your family. This is one of the hardest things to navigate because this means having a look at and going, I really wish I'd been parented differently. I really wish my mum had been there for me more. I really wish my sibling hadn't been prioritized over me. Sometimes we just have to go through the process of grieving what we didn't get to be able to come out of the other side of it. And of course, this is work that it's really useful to be supported through, not to try and navigate on your own. And don't let the label of being a generational cycle breaker be something that really starts to kind of define you and your actions. I'm not a big fan of labels because I think the problem is we then tend to start really assigning roles to ourselves and assigning behaviors to ourselves. Oh, I'm doing that because I'm a generational cycle breaker. It is a way of being. It is a role that you'll be playing for a while, but I think it's just don't let yourself be consumed by that role. And the last thing is to get support as you're navigating a journey like this and to really have the help and support you need to help you understand what you're going through and to help you with the healing process of going through it. I think family constellations is one of the most powerful modalities for helping to shed more context onto a family system. I had a constellation I did recently for a client who had been tied up in knots for years about something that had happened within her family with her parent and with one of her parents and with one of her siblings. And we did a constellation which just gave her an extra couple of bits of context and enabled her to shift her perspective a little bit from this was all directed at me and I've been completely rejected to this wasn't all about me. There was stuff going on for my parent and my sibling that I hadn't quite realized. And in realizing what was going on for them, I realized it wasn't all directed at me. And she was able to access a compassion for them, which is really important. And most importantly, she was able to access some compassion for herself and able to see herself in a different light and to feel better and lighter and happier as a result. And that really is that's the goal of the work that I'm doing. So constellations are really helpful with that, and systemic coaching is really helpful as well. So when we've done a constellation, we look at, okay, how do you shift and change going forward? So if you have you're in a system where all of the people that are kind of bugging you are all still alive and you're dealing with them, systemic coaching is a great way of going, okay, how can I start to behave differently with them, set boundaries, stop people pleasing, whilst maintaining the relationship, but maintaining the relationship with myself too. And that's really, really helpful to have somebody to help and guide you and coach you with that. So if you're curious about this, you can get in touch with me. There's a variety of ways in the show notes. I have got the free talk that I'm doing on Monday, the 31st of August, so you can sign up for that and you can find out a bit more about how family systems affect your personal relationships and what you can do to start to shift that going forwards. I have an in-person workshop on the 6th of September at Windrush Studio in Johannesburg. So if you're in South Africa, you are very welcome to join me for that. You can have your own constellation done, or you can join as a representative. Representing is so powerful. Having your own constellation done is wonderful if you've got your own particular issue to work on. Representing means that you represent for other people's constellations, but you will get some snippets of information and perspective and insight from that that will make you look at things that have happened and you'll go, oh, I get it now. So representing is incredibly powerful too. And lastly, if you are not in South Africa and you would like to do some work with me, I do constellation sessions one-on-one online via Zoom. So wherever you are in the world, you can enjoy a session with me. You can book one of those via the link in the show notes here, or if you would like to just chat to me before doing anything, you are welcome to book a free discovery call. The link is also in here, or you can reach out to me on Instagram. It's at Emma O'Brien Coach. So thank you for being with me today. And I'm really enjoying being able to share this work. If you track back to the last couple of podcast episodes, I've talked about constellations. I've talked a little bit more about hidden loyalties. So those two will also give you some extra context for what a constellation actually is if you are brand new to this work. All right, folks, thank you for being here. I will see you again soon. Bye for now.